Okay. All right. Well, let me start here. I'm going to do share screen. So my talk this evening is electric vehicles saving our planet. And you can see from this Chevy Bolt, you can forget gas, and the person driving this car also regards it as his Volkswagen. Well, here's a beautiful picture of Earthrise on the moon. So why carbon-free vehicles to save our planet? Well, simple answer, it's the only one with chocolate, as far as we know. But more seriously, it's been costing us. Basically, dry areas are getting drier because there's more evaporation at high temperature. And when there's more evaporation, there's more air in the atmosphere, and at higher temperatures, the air holds more moisture, and so when it rains, you get more of it. And you can see the effects here. This is the color coding is for these various temperature streams. You see drought and wildfires from increased dryness, increased drought and violence, and then more wetness. We get tropical cyclones. That's the same as cyclone. Hurricanes. We're getting more moisture, more rainfall. There was a hurricane in Houston, Texas, several years ago that dropped a record, I think something like 4 to 5 feet of rain during one storm. Set a new record for the United States. And we're also more flooding, more flooding. But overall, you can see the 5-year mean. You can see the solid line, and in 1980, you look at the right-hand scale, maybe it cost us about 10 billion. So the climate extremes cost us 10 billion, but you can see it's been going up, and the latest in here, 2020, it's up to 110 billion. So it's costing us. Anyway, and of course, electric vehicles charged by solar, wind, and nuclear can reduce our carbon dioxide emissions. Next slide. Here's a headline. Here's how painful the economic loss will be for the United States from unchecked climate change. And this article published in January. If we tackle climate change, we could have another industrial revolution. Climate change action could deliver another 3 trillion gain to the U.S. economy. That would be for green, more wind, solar, nuclear, geothermal, from now to 270. So that's we could contribute to our economy if we attack this problem. But if we ignore it and do nothing, it's going to cost us more. It's going to cost 15 trillion. And electric cars, of course, can help. Well, here's my all-electric Chevy Bolt. It was first available in May of 2017, and I bought it. I didn't want to wait for the Tesla Model 3 to come out. That was a year later, so I went ahead and bought it and was happy I did so. It has a 238-mile range after a full charge, and that's gone up with the later models. And quite an acceleration from 0 to 60 miles per gallon in 6.3 seconds. About half that is the model Tesla S and X, but the Bolt's cost is 1/2. I figured that was a pretty good trade-off. But 0 to 60 miles per hour in 6.3 seconds, fastest speed, the most peppy car I ever owned. And I was once showing it when I first got it. I was showing off to my wife Ginny, and she was impressed. And then when it was her turn, and here she is, here's Ginny, my better half here, and then it was Ginny's turn to drive, and it was her turn to drive, and she floored it like I did, and I was so surprised. I never thought that Ginny would ever be a hot rod, but this car has turned her into a hot rod.
Now, Paul, you are not telling the truth. I would never drive like that. And so I want you to know that I'm safe and cautious. And Paul likes to exaggerate a little bit.
Well, you did it when we got out of our driveways. We just got on the road. You did floor it.
Okay, all right. We won't hold our anger toward each other right now.
But anyway,
You're a safe driver. You're a safe driver.
She did drive. But we were just trying it out. Just seeing how peppy it could. We don't use that feature very often. Although sometimes when I'm at a stoplight lined up with another car, I can just take off and leave everybody in the dust. That gives me a certain amount of satisfaction. But the batteries and motor for this car and also the one-speed transmission are made in South Korea, and the bolt is assembled in Michigan. I will say that's right now these batteries were made in South Korea, but now South Korea, I think it's CJ Chemical, I think it is now helping GE set up a plant so that we're going to be manufacturing these batteries in Ohio and Tennessee. They're betting big bucks to build our own battery, make our own batteries in the United States, along with other manufacturers like Ford. Here's the sticker on my 2017 Chevy. You see the key features is the equivalent of 119 miles per gallon, and that's a saving in 5 years of over $4,000. And here's the range when fully charged. It has an 8-year, 100,000-mile warranty on the battery, and the number of parts in an electric motor is an order of magnitude less than an internal combustion engine. It's just basically one rotating part in the engine, as opposed to 4 to 6 or 8 cylinders going up and down, and then a number of valves for each cylinder. There are a lot of moving parts, and it's much more complex than an electric engine, much simpler. But more importantly, electric motors are more than twice as efficient as internal combustion engines. And you get high torque at low RPM. That's why they have such great pickup. And you don't need a variable transmission. Generally, it's just a one-speed reduction gear. So here I am sitting at my new Bolt. You can notice it has a speedometer right in front of me. That's a feature that I like, which is better than the Tesla Model 3. Model 3 has a very nice big touch screen in the middle, but I missed, maybe that's one reason I haven't switched over. That screen in the middle, I'm used to having a speedometer right in front of me. But the main feature I want to emphasize that it has a paddle behind the steering wheel, which activates the regenerative braking. So when you put a traditional gas car in a low gear, it slows you down. The compression, you're doing work in your engine, and the compression of the engine slows you. It's the same thing with an electric car, but when you're using your electric motor as a brake, you're turning your kinetic energy into electrical energy in your battery instead of wasting it as heat in your brakes. So that's one of the features that gives electric vehicles such high mileage, good gas mileage. Here's an example of regenerative braking. This is a dump truck that drives up a mountain with no load and carries double its weight down the mountain after getting loaded up with lime and to deliver to the cement plant. Since the electric vehicles can recover energy through regenerative braking, then wasting that energy as heat in traditional braking system, on the way down, since it's heavier, has more mass, it actually delivers more energy to the batteries than used on the way up the mountain. So there's a very interesting example of regenerative braking, way of braking using the braking action, the ability of an electric motor to act as both as a generator and a motor. So here's a photo of my Chevy Bolt next to Bruce Olson's Model 3, and and you can see his number plate. Bruce is the son of Stan Olson, who was one of the founders of digital. Bruce has actually driven it, tells me proudly that he's driven it to Florida. He drove the interstate to Florida. And then one of the advantages of Teslas is that they do have a charging network on all the major interstate highways. You know, the rest areas where you stop and get a snack and use a restroom, and of course there's the traditional gasoline station, but there are also Tesla charging stations at these. So that's how he made it to Florida. He paid a little extra for this for a little extra battery. I think the range on this Model S that he has, he tells me, is like over 300 miles on a full charge. And these are fast chargers, and you know, about a half an hour you can get almost a full charge. And be on your way. In that half an hour, you can have a cup of coffee or whatever. So as we all know, the price of gasoline has been growing up. And here's a plot of the price of crude oil. As you can see, it's been going up for years now, as shown by this solid line. And this is the surge in prices when the Ukrainian war started. You see this surge in prices, and it's come down. Gasoline, the price of crude oil is, I think today it was up a little higher, but it's been sort of going between $100 per barrel and maybe $108 per barrel, something like that. So this has created a big demand for electric cars because gasoline is so expensive, and you can forget gas when you drive your electric car, when you have an electric car. Here's a plot here of the average cost per month. This is the total cost. It's the purchase price, which is higher right now for electric vehicles, but the fuel cost or the energy cost is much lower than for an internal combustion, and also the maintenance is cost. There's no oil and filter changes, and it's basically a very much simpler engine and with more efficiency. And as you can see, we have here the cost of a Nissan Leaf. That's among the lower priced electric vehicles. The total cost of owning a Nissan Leaf is less than that of a Honda Civic. But you can see the emissions, the equivalent carbon dioxide emissions on the left-hand side are obviously lower for the electric cars than they are for the internal combustion cars. And you can see some of these, like the Lexus GX is expensive, but it also has a lot of emissions, as you can see way up here. But so electric cars, the cost of owning is less than a Honda Civic. They're doubly green, saving our planet, and also the greenbacks in our pocketbook. If you look at the total cost, the front cost is higher, but it gets you make up for it by the lower maintenance and energy costs of driving it. Well, they're saving our planet. Even, of course, as we know, the emissions of an electric vehicle are at the generating plant, and as you can see here, the greenest energy is in New York State. They have a lot of hydro from Niagara, and also have nuclear. And an internal combustion car, if it could get 191 miles per gallon, the emissions, the equivalent power plant emissions for electric car in New York State are the equivalent to a gasoline car. If you could have a gasoline car giving you 191 miles per gallon. We do pretty well in New England, as you can see. We're about 100 miles per gallon equivalent, and similarly for California and the western states. The most carbon dioxide emissions are these coal burning states, but even there, the equivalent mileage of an electric vehicle is 38 miles per gallon, better than the average car with 25 miles per gallon. So even in coal burning states, our planet less carbon dioxide than with internal combustion cars. So they are indeed saving our planet. Here's a little bit on the, I thought I'd have a little bit on the Nobel Prize for the invention of the lithium batteries that power all our electronics these days, and also made electric vehicles possible. It got started back in 1973. when John Goodenough, who was then at the MIT Lincoln Lab, was to evaluate a project by scientist Whitingham at Exxon. And Whitingham's battery, who was the original inventor, had a titanium disulfide cathode shown here, and an inflammable lithium anode shown here. And you see the way these batteries work is that basically the electrons, which in this case powering an electric light bulb or power your car, go through the external circuit from anode to cathode, and the ions, in this case lithium ions, travel inside the battery as shown here. And the thing that makes these batteries rechargeable is what they call that the electrode has these layers in it, and the lithium ions, instead of chemically bonding to the anode, they intercalcate. They sort of slip in between these layers, and so when you charge the battery, you reverse, everything gets reversed. The ions go the other way, and so the ions come out of the cathode and back to the anode. Well, the problem that Whitingham and Exxon had in those days was that the dendrite whiskers, that came out of the anode, the metallic lithium anode, and it shorted out the battery and caused serious fires, some fires at Exxon, and that stopped the program at Exxon. Well, it continued on. Remember, the original battery only had a voltage of 2 volts, and John Goodenough's contribution was to replace the anode. He had then moved from Lincoln Lab to Oxford University, and he replaced the cathode with a lithium cobalt oxide that increased the voltage from 2 to 4 volts, a significant increase. And then Yoshino in Japan, these were the 3 winners of the Nobel Prize, replaced the inflammable lithium anode with petroleum coke graphite, a sort of a layered form of graphite. That solved the dendrite shorting out problem. And in 1991, Sony started commercializing it for electronic devices. And of course, the first uses were in that made iPhones possible. I can remember my first iPhone back in, it was in 90, I think it was in 95. I had an iPhone, it was a bag phone, and it had a lead acid battery, and it was huge. It was just bigger than the iPhone. It was bigger than the phone itself, heavy, and of course those are replaced by the lithium batteries, which make these small compact cell phones possible. So here's a photo of John Goodenough when I I was working at the MIT Lincoln Lab as a graduate student, and this is what he looked like when I was working at Lincoln Lab during the summer job I had there. This is what he looks like today. He's now, when he won the Nobel Prize, he was 97, and he's now 99. A good example for all of us. And he's at the University of Texas in Austin. He was Nobel laureate university, and he's still working on better batteries. He still has ideas. It's interesting. My first paper was also on oxides. Remember, he used the cobalt oxide. I was doing research with Siphoner on titanium oxide and vanadium oxide, and we acknowledged an informative discussion with John Goodenough back in 1960. Here's a photo of John. He's now working on he calls it a glass battery, and he has a team of technology that could one day supplant it. He's proposing a lithium sodium glass battery that has 3 times the energy storage capacity of a comparable lithium ion battery. And there are many other attempts to make even better batteries than the original lithium battery that won the Nobel Prize. And he said that he chairs, it charges in minutes rather than hours, and Hydro-Quebec is now commercializing it and should be ready in a few years. So here's an example of better batteries that he's still actively working on. Good example for all of us. Wow. You can see someone have a comment, or someone want to ask a question? Or have a comment? anyway,
I raised my hand earlier, but I took it down because you said something that answered my question.
okay. I already answered your question. Okay. Just have a sip of water here. And basically, the cost of the more abundant the element, the less costly less cost it is. And I just go back to my former slide, and you can see the cost of the battery is coming down dramatically. Matter of fact, a six-fold decrease in the cost of lithium-ion batteries since 2010. And right now, they basically cost $170 per kilowatt hours, but it could go down by a factor of half. You can see it's sort of coming down. Well, but they'll never get more less expensive than the basic chemicals. You still have to pay for the basic chemicals that go into these batteries. And so I borrowed this slide from MIT professor Don Sadoway, who's working on liquid metal batteries. And he said, if you want to have an inexpensive battery, you want them to be cheaper. You want them to be as cheap. If you want batteries dirt cheap, make them from dirt. That's his slogan, and he picks materials which are cheap, and that's what of course that is still very much an issue with lithium batteries. You can see the more abundant, you see the like oxygen and silicon, the most abundant here, and highlighted in color are elements used in lithium-ion battery technology. None of the elements shown are very rare. For comparison, gold and platinum have abundances less than 0.001 of these units, so they would be way down 3 orders of magnitude lower. But the more abundant, the lower the cost. And you can see cobalt, unfortunately, is not that, well, is the least abundant, and it comes from the Congo, and apparently that's the only source. It's sort of only one main company with a country that applies cobalt, rather expensive. So manufacturers are making combining that cobalt with a nickel, which is a little less expensive, more abundant, less again, and manganese to the lower the cost of the batteries. You can see lithium is abundant, as shown here, sort of medium abundance, but there's lots of it all over the surface of the earth. I'll talk a little bit more how we get lithium. Oh yeah, well here's a slide. This is a recent article. Electric car demands spurs white gold rush at California's vast lake. I might say that the main suppliers of lithium to date have been Chile, the salt flats in Chile, and also Australia. But electric car demands white gold, and now we're developing our own lithium sources right here on California's vast lake. The U.S. path to a future of electric vehicles runs through the lithium-rich Imperial Valley, and a region better known for its environmental degradation as a model of sustainability. The geology of the Salton Sea offers a solution for car makers. Let me just go back. Looking to localize their supply chains. The region already offers more geothermal capacity than anywhere in the world and has the potential to power more than 1.5 million homes. So we're getting both lithium brine. I'll go into that a little bit more. It's in the brine, which is the salty water. See, the brine that flows to the surface in the process of power generation, this is geothermal power, also contains enough lithium to produce 600,000 tons of the mineral every year, which California Energy has estimated to be 6 times the amount produced globally. So we have this tremendous resource that we're developing right in our own country, which is great, which means we won't have to import import the lithium for the batteries from other countries. Thought I'd give a little more detail of geothermal systems. Basically, the basic idea is that the deeper you go in the earth, the warmer it gets and the hotter it gets. And this shows, let's say, water being injected down a borehole, and it's hot enough down here to get it to boil. And so the heated fluid flows back up to the surface. And that's where the brine comes from that they talked about. And that brine is, contains salt and also contains lithium. That was the brine that comes to the surface. But also, you mentioned that the way they get power is that it's hot enough down here to generate steam. And so the steam comes up here and turns a turbine which generates electricity. So and geothermal has the advantage that it's there all the time. It's not like wind and solar that are intermittent. It's there all the time, and you can get it anywhere in the United States. I'll just show that in a minute. It's available if you can drill deeper. The technology is deep drilling technology. You need to get down about here's a plot of basically the temperature. The temperatures in the United States. If you drill down 10 kilometers, I might say that the typical fracking or oil well today is about 1 to 2 kilometers. So of course horizontal drilling, where we go down vertically and then turn 90 degrees and go horizontal. We've invented that technology, and that technology plus fracking is what enabled natural gas and to be cheaper than coal, and it also has made the United States a major producer of fossil fuels. So if we can learn to, and we are learning to drill deeper, if we learn to get down to maybe 10 kilometers, it's hot enough to generate steam anywhere in the United States. And that's, let me just go back. Yeah, go back here. So if you go down if you look in New England here, you go down 10 kilometers, it's sort of in the brown here. So the temperatures are, around 200 degrees C. That's more than enough you need to make steam. So you inject water down kilometers and you get steam, and that steam turns a turbine to generate electricity. Of course, you see right now, most geothermal is in the western states, and there you don't need to go down. If you went down 10 kilometers, you'd have really high temperatures, but you don't really need to go down that deep. So they don't have to drill that deep. And that's why present geothermal is in more shallow wells are apparently, most of them are in the west here because you don't have to drill. But as we develop deep drilling technology, we'll be able to get geothermal anywhere in the United States, and presumably anywhere in the world, and it's there 24/7. And here's a projection that the super hot enhanced geothermal might actually might be a cheaper form of electricity. Here's a projection compared to onshore wind, and this is geothermal today. It's between 80 and 120 dollars per megawatt hour, and then you can see solar photovoltaics, advanced nuclear, and natural gas combined cycle. So what has been the best-selling vehicle in the United States? Anybody know?
Yes.
Best-selling vehicle in the United States for the last 40 years.
Tesla?
No, that is the best. Tesla is the best-selling electrical vehicle, and right now they have about 70% of the market.
Ford 150.
Pardon?
A Ford 150 pickup truck.
Yes, exactly. The Ford 150, here's the data. The Ford 150 pickups, the truck. And you can see, here's the data. There it is. You can see units sold. It's competing with Ram and the Chevrolet, but they're somewhat behind. But now you see the Honda Civic, which is, gets good gas mileage for an internal combustion engine car, but not about half as many Civics are sold compared to trucks. But the F-Series, the Ford F-Series truck has been the best-selling vehicle in the U.S. for 40 years. But it's going to be electric, and I think it's just coming on the market right now. Ford is producing an electric version, and they've already taken. People have made down payments and made reservations to order 200,000 of these. Ford can probably only produce maybe 75,000 a year. So some of these people are going to have to wait. And I think they've stopped taking reservations. If anyone was planning to order one, you'd have to wait. but they've stopped taking more orders of this new electrical version. So it's very popular. Here's just what a picture of it. It's basically the same truck. They've just same looking truck, and they've just replaced the internal combustion engine or the diesel with an electric engine, which is a lot smaller. The best-selling truck for 40 right now is charging into the future with an all-new, all-electric 1922 Ford F. They call it the Ford 150 Lightning. It's the first ever F-Series that's gas-free and offers more purposeful technology, elevating during an elevated driving experience and trusted big Ford tough capability, offering an ingenious array of connected intelligent features over the all-air software updates to help ensure your truck can get better even. And understand that that's happening with the Tesla. They keep sending out new updates with new capabilities. You can send the software updates over the internet. We're familiar with that with our computers. So I thought one of the most attractive features of this is that it has well, I just read it. Backup. It tells security and peace of mind are invaluable during severe weather and unpredictable events. That's why Ford ensures you will never have to worry about being left out in the dark. The all-electric F-Electric Lightning features available Ford intelligent backup power that can produce a full home power for up to 3 days on a fully charged battery and as long as 10 days of racing power. Basically, it has a plug panel where you can just plug in and use the battery, the electricity stored in the battery, just to power your home. So that's a great feature, I must say. I live in New Hampshire, and after a 4-day power outage due to an ice storm, we invested in a propane fired powered generator. By the way, any electric car should have this capability. You just need an adapter kit. Now, the adapter kit is built into the truck, but in principle, any electric vehicle, you basically need to convert, the DC of your battery into the 60 volts AC that your house is set up to accept. And so this is built into the truck, but in principle, you should be able to buy a conversion kit for any electric electric car. So that's a nice feature they've built in. It's already there. You just plug in. But and they also that same feature also enables you to operate power tools. You just plug in and you see basically you turn your truck into a generated outboard available maximum. It has 11 120 volt outlets. So if you have electrical power tools, you just plug into your truck and you power your tour when you're way out in the country somewhere. So that's maybe one of the reasons maybe this truck is so popular and much more than Ford expected, actually. So anyway, long-term projection. Basically, this is where we are right now. The yellow line is all EVs percentage of sales, and now, maybe we're at maybe 4% or something. 4% of sales are EVs, and the top bar. This is internal combustion engines. This is the conventional internal combustion, but you can see the battery electric vehicles are this color here, and you can see they're increasing. And so by 2030, projection is that we'll be up to 28% electric vehicles, and when you can see up to over 50%, 55% by 2040 as the technology becomes more available. And due to the economy of scale, battery costs should go down, and at some point, the purchase price of electric vehicle could be comparable or even less than a conventional gas-powered vehicle. And that should really, that's why you see the steepening of the curve right in here. It's right in here when the purchase cost becomes comparable or even less to that of an internal combustion. That's why this large increase that you see up here. So in summary, for what I've said so far, electric cars are fun to drive, scientific acceleration 0 to 60 in 3 to 6 seconds. They're doubly green, saving our planet with no carbon dioxide emissions and saving the green in your pocketbook. Remember that number plate, forget gas. And according to MIT professor Buongiorno, well, of course, with increasing electric vehicles, like maybe with 50%, we're going to need more electricity, and where will the grid be able to handle that? And at least from MIT professor Buongiorno's study, he said that a nuclear buildup at a historically feasible rate. Let me just show that. Let's go back. At a historical, it could completely decarbonize the world electric power sector within 30 years. The energy stored cost to make wind and solar available all the time could be up to when you factor in, I mean, wind and solar by themselves at the present time are the cheapest forms of electricity, but the wind isn't always blowing and the sun doesn't shine at night. And so when the wind isn't blowing and the sun isn't shining, you need storage. The grid can provide some of that. Other forms of electricity like nuclear and natural gas are there all the time, and they can maybe, but when you get up to over 30%, when one study has shown that maybe wind and solar could provide, our present grid could maybe accept 20 to 30%. But for more than that, when you factor in the cost of storing the electricity that wind and solar generate, they're actually more expensive if you factor that in. So where are we going to get the greener power from our electric vehicles? Well, one is solar charging stations. There's probably some of you have seen it. There's one at Walden Pond, and that's great for during the day. But longer term, there's a company called NewScale. Power modules are factory built and delivered by truck, mass producing them to get the cost down. Most of the cost of a nuclear reactor is shown here by this large concrete structure, which has steel reinforced concrete, and a major portion of the cost. So these will be located in a hole in the ground. They won't be that visible, which I think might help the NIMBY factor, and they should bring the cost down because you got the economy of scale, mass produced in a factory and then trucked on site. So you can Google my name, Paul H. Carr, to get to my webpage, which is mirrorofnature.org. I have a presentation, and I could maybe go into a little bit more of that now, but I thought I would just go back and open it for questions on what I've said so far, in case people have questions.
I have a question, Dr. Carr. How
Yeah.
long does it take you to charge your vehicle at home?
Well, I use the standard 120 volts,
Mhm.
and it's adequate. It's adequate for the amount of driving that I do. However, if I were to commute, if I were to drive it every day and need to charge it overnight, I would have an electrician store up, basically your things like your electric dryer have a special plug that puts out 240 volts rather than the standard 120 volts. So if I wanted to charge it overnight, I would change the electrical outlet to 240 volts, and I could charge it overnight. But I don't really need to do that, so I haven't done it.
I don't have a place to charge at home, so I charge at a charge point station, and it takes about between 4 to 6 hours to charge my Tesla Model 3 all the way up. But you never actually charge it all the way up. You sort of charge it like 80% up, and you don't ever try to let it get all the way down either. But when I visited my dad and mom in Tennessee, they don't have anything near the house. So there was a plug on the outside of the house by the driveway, regular 110 plug. I would just plug it in whenever I was there. And that's a trickle charge. It gives my car about 4 or 5 miles for every hour of being plugged in. And the Model 2, the level 2 charger, which is like charge point chargers that you see at the train stations and stuff, that gives you about 25 miles per hour of being plugged in. But the Tesla supercharger stations, those charge you up hundreds of over 100 miles in 1 hour of being plugged in. You only need to plug in for my car when I'm going on long trips. I just stop at a supercharger station, and in a half an hour, I'm ready to go. And that's just enough time to go to the bathroom and get a bite to eat, stretch your legs.
Right, right. Yeah, you need to stop periodically anyway. Keep yourself awake. So yeah, that's appropriate for long trips. That's right. The superchargers, right?
Mm-hmm. It's
Is
like,
I guess President Biden's infrastructure bill that has passed includes lots of charging stations. So they're going to be federal funds to make many more charging stations available.
Rick Heller, did you have a question?
Well, it was along those lines. If you're going to make a long trip, do you have to kind of plan it out in advance with, like, I don't know, some app that'll tell you where you can get charged along the way?
there are apps, but I don't have to. My car does it for me. You put in your destination and it tells you what the right route to go is,
Mhm.
where you have to stop to charge, how
Mhm.
many chargers are available there,
Mhm.
what the power is, you know, what
Okay.
amenities are right near there too.
Mhm.
And it plans out the whole trip for you.
Hmm. Okay.
It's like, it's much better than your standard GPS systems, which have a little screen. This is the big iPad screens. You can see the
Mhm.
whole map. You can zoom in and out. You can
Mhm.
change it. Oh, it's wonderful.
Hmm.
I feel comfortable taking off. I would drive anywhere. The number of supercharger stations there are is amazing, and it's getting more and more.
Okay.
That's the main advantage Tesla has right now, I think.
That's right. That's right. I have heard some talk about an adapter plug, but basically they have a special plug that only fits the Tesla. And I've heard some reports that you might possibly, someone who doesn't have a Tesla might have an adapter, but I really haven't ever followed up on that. But right now, or at least initially, it's designed only to power to fit Teslas. Teslas have it's a smaller plug that the Teslas have, and the more standard charging plug is bigger and won't fit. The Tesla plug won't fit it won't charge my Bolt, put it that way, without an adapter. But I've never had the need for it, or haven't ever looked into it, whether there might be.
And you need to have a car that can accept really fast charging, and not
Well, that's
all-
right too. That's right. Yeah. Yeah,
But
that's
I
right.
think
That's- that's-
eventually Tesla's gonna be opening up the supercharger network to everybody. They already are in one country in Scandinavia. I have a adapter I put on the charge point chargers.
I see. So you can use the charge point as well as the Tesla. Mhm.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and charge point's cheaper.
Oh, really?
Hmm.
That's interesting.
Yeah, especially because here in Concord, you know, we've got time of use rates. If you charge on off peaks, it's half the price per hour of charging.
Right. Well, as a matter of fact, let me just brings up another interesting. This is going to be one solution, by the way, to to how we're going to get more electricity when we get really more and more. Let me just go back to share screen. I have a plot that I have a slide that illustrates that. Yeah. Here's the usage, typical demand. Most of the demand for electricity is greatest in the day, during the day. Now, particularly it sort of peaks around 1400 hours, that's 2 p.m. From 2 p.m. to 6 p.m. The peak demand is the order of, the peak demand is the order of 50, whatever, megawatts. But you can see, and the commercial peaks during the day, goes down at night because people don't work that much at night. And the residential sort of peaks in the evening when people go home, turn on television, cook their dinner. But by 12 o'clock at night, the demand has gone way down. So we pick it up over here. Here's midnight here. So by charging our electric cars at night, there's a lot of unused capacity. In other words, this same capacity, in other words, our utilities have enough generation capacity that they can meet 50 megawatts demand, and so if the electric cars gets charged at night between, let's say, 12 and say 7 in the morning, you know, that same capacity, you know, it could level the load, so to speak. The load could pick up, and our utilities can handle that. So and I think the way that happens, as you say, people have time of use charging, and so by charging users less at night, they will do it. And it's, well, it may actually become mandatory to avoid a brownout, because, you know, as they say, the capacity for higher generation is there, and we just aren't using it at night. So that's a capacity. And then, of course, as I said, more nuclear, which is 24/7, which is there all the time. And, yeah, go ahead. And also geothermal, of course.
But there's also things like you said about making batteries out of dirt because it's dirt cheap. There's places in Scandinavia where they don't have any sunlight in the wintertime, and they use the excess solar during the summertime to pump heat into a big sand pit and use the sand pit warmth during the wintertime to store the battery. And there's technology that's really already proven to use a liquid air battery to store excess. Literally energy from liquefied air. You use your excess solar and wind to compress the air until it liquefies. And when it does, you know, like liquid natural gas or liquid nitrogen, air is mostly nitrogen. And when it does that, you can pull the carbon out.
Right.
And then you can store the heat that gets released for that at the same time. And when you need the energy, you let the compressed air turn back into gas from the liquefied form, and you collect the energy from that too. I put a link for a YouTube little video about that in the chat. It's really
great.
fascinating.
There's another one, actually, as I understand it, along the in central Massachusetts, along the Connecticut River, there's a pumped hydro storage where they use excess electricity to pump water to a reservoir on top of a mountain or a small hill or whatever. And then when you need electricity, you let that water run downhill through a turbine and generate electricity. So that's another, it's known as pumped hydro. That's a very inexpensive way of storing electricity. That's another way of storing electricity, which is going to be more important as we get more electric vehicles.
And then the vehicles themselves, they're backup batteries.
Right,
Because-
exactly.
Because if you charge up the vehicles, also if you have residential solar, if you use battery backups, like the Tesla Powerwall, then you can store when you make too much solar,
Right,
use it when the cost of getting power from the grid is the most expensive. And local utilities can also use software to use people's backup battery systems to balance out their grid needs. Plus, there's new ideas from the University of Vermont to use distributed electric the same way the internet does. So you get the power. I could also find the little video on that. It's fascinating. There's all kinds of stuff that people don't know about that we can do. And it's being suppressed by the fossil fuel industry.
Right.
Right now, Tesla made the horn system in Australia, where there was this huge solar and wind farm that was intermittent, of course, but they put in a big battery, lithium ion battery system there, and it paid for itself in a year.
wow.
And it now pumps out amazing amounts of energy. You don't need a whole nuclear plant for that. You can use batteries.
Right. It's interesting. It pays for itself in a year. Yeah,
I think it was a year. It was a very short time.
a short time. Yeah, that's great.
Conrad, did you have a question?
Well, a couple. So I'll save the criticism as the second. One is, how come the cars, it seems that they don't have, at least Tesla doesn't have the charger built into the car? Why?
It does.
It does? I thought you have a special plug. You can just plug it into AC.
Yes, you can.
Oh, you can? Okay.
Yeah, it has. Well, now
Slow.
they
Slow.
ran out of my car came with a little Ziploc bag that had the you wouldn't call it a hose.
It's basically, yeah, I have an adapter. One plugs into my 120 volt AC in my garage, and the other end plugs into my Chevy Bolt. Because it's a different size plug, but you just go from AC and there must be a rectifier in my electric vehicle, because you need DC to charge your battery, and the power coming out of your AC plug is 160 hertz. But yeah, so you just plug one end into your 120 volts, or 220, 200, if you want a faster charge, 240 volts, you have an adapter, and then the other end plugs into your electric car, and you're charging it.
Yeah, that charger that came with my car has different plug ins. One is a plug that plugs into a 110 outlet, and one is one that plugs into a 240 outlet, like a dryer outlet. And I guess there's different plugs. Anyway, it came with several different plugs. So the other end is just into my car,
Right.
but it allows you to charge from different places. But
Right.
like the Supercharger, you don't ever have to get that out because it comes with its own charging.
I understand.
Right, and your car has to be has to have the right receptacle for that, and right, to be able, that's a fast DC charge, right?
Yeah, and I could theoretically charge at a fast charger like a CHAdeMO or something else, but I'd have to have the adapter to
Yeah.
put on a part that would go into my car.
Mhm.
Should we go back to Conrad? You,
So I had another question regarding the batteries. One of the early criticisms, I remember, this was a while ago, was how long, well, first of all, how long do they last before they have to be disposed?
8 years.
8 years. Okay, so
Well, actually,
Well, that's the guarantee. That's,
yeah, the warranty, at least the warranty, I think the general warranty is 100,000 miles or was it 8 years or something like, whichever comes sooner. However, as you may have noticed in your computer, batteries don't die after 100,000 miles or 8 years. They just,
get worse.
well, they don't charge as much. In other words, they aren't as effective. In other words, my maximum range when the car is new might be, let's say, well, it's 200, let's just say 250 miles. And so when the warranty is up, it might only go, 200 miles or 190 miles on a full charge.
Right, I
And
understand.
it will go down over time. As long as you can live within it, as long as you can live with it, you don't have to replace your batteries. And of course, the batteries are replaceable.
it's sort of like solar panels too,
That's
they
right.
have
It's the same.
supposedly a 30-year lifespan, but they could last lots longer.
That's
We
right.
have a- We have
Mine
a
will-
raised, we have a
efficiency
raised
goes-
hand from Paul.
Yeah, I just wondered if you could say something about what appears to be the cheapest electric car, the Nissan Leaf.
Oh, I think the least expensive seems to be the Nissan Leaf. That seems to be the least expensive.
Yeah.
Yeah, and they've been
Say
making
something
them
about
long.
this
They've been making them
technology.
longest. They've been making them the longest. I think they were about the first in the market with the Nissan Leaf. I think they came out in 2010. So they've been making them. They have a lot of experience.
Mhm.
And it's the least expensive electric car. Oh, and by the way, I have this is several years, of course, right now, pre-owned cars are selling at a premium, but that's because of the COVID and the shortage of chips, and new cars are, I have a friend who's just buying an electric car, and he's been shopping around, and he said, you have to figure you're going to have to pay $2,000 over the list price. And he wanted to get the Ford Mustang, electric Ford Mustang, and that wasn't or he'd have to wait for a long time, but he was able to get, he says he's buying one on Friday. It's a Kia, and it wasn't his first choice, but it's readily available, and he says he's snatching it up rather than wait for months for a new one to come in. But that's the present status of any new car, as I understand it, not just electric cars, because there's a shortage of computer chips. However, back before COVID, in those good old days, I had a friend who bought a Nissan Leaf, and it came off a 3-year, people will buy them and will buy them and turn them in after a 3-year lease. So he bought a Nissan Leaf. It came off a 3-year. After 3 years, it was been used for 3 years. He bought it for $10,000. And of course, the capacity of the battery wasn't quite as good as if he'd bought a new one, but it was perfectly adequate for her needs. So, he got a 3-year-old electric car with lots of life left for $10,000. So that's something you'd have to shop around. I doubt if you could do that today, because
there's-
some-
the used Teslas are going for higher than brand new.
That's right, because of the demand. That's right,
There's
because
a-
of the demand.
There's a
That's right.
wait.
That's
Yeah,
right.
you have to wait months.
Right, because of the demand. That's really right now, but I don't think that's it wasn't the case before the COVID. This is all a result of the chip shortages due to COVID. This is all that's right. But as I said,
And a huge demand.
right, huge demand. Well, particularly, of course, the demand has gone up even more as gas prices have gone up. The demand for electric cars has also skyrocketed. Yeah, I've been listening to the news and seeing how people are complaining how much it costs to fill their tank, and I'm just smiling to myself. They should have bought an electric car.
Yeah,
But it's not that easy to get one right now. But but keep in mind, if you do shop, that's right, as you say, it's not a good time to buy any car right now because of the supply is greater than demand. But hopefully in a couple of years, the chip shortage will go away and things will get a little more back to normal.
Let's go over to Conrad.
So to follow up on my, when I was asking about batteries, one of the criticisms early on with the electric cars was disposing of the batteries, that they are very bad for environment.
but you can reuse them, recycle them into wall units for storage, for instance. My Tesla came with my battery pack in the Tesla, an 8-year, 300,000 mile warranty for 70%. So after 300,000 miles, the battery should still be 70% good. In other words, the range might go down a little, but good deal.
Well, eventually it will go away though. I mean, but
Oh, yeah,
No,
yeah.
it won't go away.
Yeah, it just keeps going down and down, and
Right.
yeah, it isn't as though it dies all of a sudden.
no, I understand. But disposing of it, I've somewhere I've read a long time, it was a while ago, that disposing of them was hazardous, was very hazardous.
Not anymore. They've got good recycling
They got-
systems starting up. A lot of startup companies like
Right, are recycling them, that's right.
That's what I meant. I didn't know. I was just curious about it. Yeah.
Yeah.
The other opportunity for old batteries is in school buses. School buses have all that floor space, to put a battery in the floor of the bus, and they certainly don't need 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. So they can
That's
use
true.
older batteries.
That's true.
And also the other nice thing in a school bus, because the weight of the battery lowers the center of gravity. The biggest problem with school buses is rollover. So it actually makes the buses, safer.
Safer, yeah, because of, yeah.
and also so much healthier because diesel buses are really polluting for the kids. There have been studies that their IQs go down, the incidence of asthma and other respiratory issues go up. And that is completely solved with electric school buses. The only reason we don't have everybody be in electric school buses now is the infrastructure isn't there, and a new electric bus is 3 times the price of a diesel bus, a new diesel bus. So an electric bus costs about $300,000 and a diesel bus $100,000. But then you don't have to maintain it if it's an electric bus. You don't have the engines to tune up. You don't have the oil to deal. We don't have the fluids. And it's so much cheaper. It saves thousands of dollars per year in maintenance on every single school bus, electric school bus. Plus, you can use it as backup generators for, big emergencies.
I see Terry has a raised hand.
Yes, I have a question. So what happens to the fossil fuel companies as we move forward and move towards electric cars? What role, if any, will they have? I can't imagine it's going to go away.
Well, I think they're getting smart, and they realize that they are energy companies, and a lot of the fossil fuel companies are investing in wind and solar, and also understand Exxon is investing in technology for pulling the carbon dioxide out of smokestacks. And that would make, if we could pull the, I listened to a NOVA program last night, and they're talking about, these big fans that will pull the carbon dioxide out of the air. Well, it's only 0.0, was it? It's only a 0.04%. In other words, the amount of carbon dioxide in the air is very small. However, the carbon dioxide, and they're talking about doing this, but the carbon dioxide emissions at the smokestack, it's mostly carbon dioxide. So the place to put your carbon dioxide removal is at the smokestack. And, there's, you can do it, by the way. It's been.
Yeah,
been
but
proven.
it's cheaper to build a new solar/wind with battery backup than it is to just run, not to mention build, a new natural gas power plant. It costs less to build them than it does to just run a conventional fossil fuel power plant. And that's not known. I also put a link in The Great Stranding, how inaccurate mainstream LCOE estimates are creating $1 trillion bubble, because the fossil fuel companies and the utility companies are mispricing the cost of electricity of conventional natural gas and oil type power plants, fossil fuel power plants. They're saying that the cost of electricity is much lower than it actually is. And they're not using their own actual data to make those calculations. I recommend that link I put in there.
Let's take it back to Conrad.
One more question. Maintenance, mechanic, what goes wrong with them? Obviously, I'm familiar with the regular cars. I know what goes wrong with, what is the most likely, and then another thing, do batteries blow up? There was a problem, I thought I heard it some time ago with batteries blowing up occasionally. So
Yeah.
mechanic, and then
Yeah.
can you bring a car to a regular garage, or how does it work?
You can, there were the laptop batteries blowing up in the airplanes and things. The lithium ion batteries can be dangerous if they're damaged and all, and they have to be done right in order to be very safe. But then gasoline tanks blow up too.
Oh,
And the relative danger is on the side of electric being safer.
okay. So what goes wrong most often as far as breakage? Going to a mechanic.
Well, you know what? They have so few moving parts. No oil changes,
No, I understand. No fluids, no water pumps. I understand.
Well, you have
you need,
windshield washer fluid in.
you worry about your tires, your wipers, and washer fluid. And those are things, you don't really need to take it into a shop. I mean, you go to a tire shop and get the tires.
That's different,
There's
right?
brakes, but with regenerative braking, heck, the brakes last really long time. You don't have to change the brakes as often.
Right.
So there's no problems with the electric motors.
No,
No,
I mean, they're just very
they just
simple.
go.
The
You
other-
don't even have to
Forever.
tune up. You don't even have tune-ups.
No, I know that. Yeah, I can imagine. There's no
Yeah,
spark.
The other thing is, like, if you have to replace an ICE car, gasoline car, it's going to cost you thousands of dollars to replace an engine. I'm talking about the motor is about the size of a toaster, and I don't know the price offhand, but it's somewhat simpler.
I think the main problem is wrecking things. You can blow up your battery in a wreck, and that is hard because you can't put them out with water and stuff. There's a new startup company called Regenerative, and they have they're developing a system for having a van, a big truck with equipment that freezes the hurt batteries and then grinds it up and puts it in a solution that makes it safe to travel. And they're gonna, go to electric vehicle wrecks and save the batteries. I gave them $10,000 as a investment in that startup. Ooh, putting money into Tesla, You can make money saving the planet. That stock is being suppressed all the time by short sellers and by the fossil fuel industry, because they'll save millions of dollars for every day that the mass adoption of electric vehicles is delayed. So it's still a good deal to buy Tesla stock.
I know it. I know
If you're
we're,
a long-term investor.
I know we're using the T word a lot. It's not meant to be a Tesla commercial, but a lot of the other electric cars that are coming out, Hyundai, there's Polestar, there's a lot of European cars, even Volkswagen has an electric car now.
Rivian, Lucid.
Rivian has a pickup truck, but it's something I sort of feel myself. I don't have one yet, but I feel it's going to be like when the smartphones came out. Everybody was looking at, look at this chocolate bar, and then in 2 years everybody had one. It's just, I think it's going to go pretty quick.
Right.
Some of these things are expensive. It's not a solution that fits everybody, because it depends on what kind of commute you have, or if you live in the city, maybe you don't even need a car. But like Hertz has ordered 100,000 Teslas again, but everybody knows that's the coming future. And if you're in the market for a vehicle, the obvious choice would be electric, but it really depends on your situation.
I wouldn't buy well, having driven it, I turned into a car person. I don't care about cars, just get me there. But it's so fun. It's powerful. It's quiet.
It really is fun. That's right.
Ooh, yeah, isn't it?
Yeah, it
And-
really is. They really are fun to drive. It's really, you sort of get addicted.
Yeah, quick. And once you've been driving it, I hear from everybody who does that. They're never going back to ICE.
Right, right.
And the cost is going down fast. Or it will. Right now, Tesla has to keep raising its prices because otherwise the wait for the delivery of the new cars is too long. And as soon as you get it, you can resell it for much more than you paid for it.
Yeah. That's because of the supply and demand it's a supply and demand. The supply of that's right. The supply of new cars is so much less than the demand that people are buying used cars, and there the demand is so high that the prices are going up there too. But this is not, I think in a few years this is going to get back to normal.
I don't understand what the fun is from driving the car. Is it just the pickup that you have, or why is it fun to drive an electric car?
Well, it's the pickup, the responsiveness, and the quietness also. Like they are very quiet, very quiet.
It's luxurious.
Yeah, that's right. It's sort of, yeah. And they're really nicely made. I must say they're really nicely made. They're nicely designed. I mean, with the latest technology, electronic technology, and yeah, it's the total package, I think.
Do you think that the standard automobile companies are going to survive? Because
they're converting. I mean, basically, they're a lot of them saying, like GM says, we're not going to be they're saying in 2035, they're saying we will only be selling electric cars. And that's true of a lot of European companies are saying the same thing. They say we're going to be, and I think I've heard that in Europe, there are going to be laws where, basically in 2035, there'll be laws where you can't sell it. You can't buy it, and you can only buy an electric car. I mean, these are the projections that people are making. Particularly, Europe is more progressive than we are in a lot of this technology. But yeah.
Gas is much more expensive.
GM says in 2035, we only plan to make, but fortunately, we're making the batteries in this country. So that's jobs for Americans. And it will, of course, one of the things that you're not going to, the people are going to be out of work, or the companies out of it, the people that make the catalytic converters and the mufflers and the tail pumps are going to be out of a job. Because electric cars don't have catalytic, which are quite expensive. And particularly you don't need catalytic converters. You don't need a muffler. You don't need a tailpipe. So those people are going to, but those people will be making batteries. In other words, the new jobs will be in manufacturing. We're going to be making, fortunately, we're going to be making them in this country. Yeah, I say GM has a new plant in Ohio and Tennessee, and Ford has several factories under electric battery factories under construction. So the industry is going to change.
Did
It's
you
in the
know
process of
that
changing.
California's biggest export is Tesla cars? Already. From their Fremont factory.
Interesting.
And,
But it's also interesting that you mentioned Revon making trucks, and I mentioned the Ford truck, the best-selling press is going to be electric. But Elon Musk has a Cybertruck. He's going to be coming out. What he calls it? I don't know if you've seen pictures of it. It looks like it came out of a space. It looks like a.
it's folded stainless steel.
Yeah, that's right. It's made right. It has stainless steel armor plate for the sides, and it has bulletproof glass. But it looked, the design is sort of looks like it looks like science fiction. If you've seen, you might just look it up on the web. Just Google a Cybertruck, Tesla Cybertruck. It's going to be available in a few years. So that's another. But he's making that in Texas. Interestingly, he little too much regulation in California. That's why his Cybertruck plant is going to be in Texas. He likes that better than California.
I could share the screen if you want to see what the Cybertruck looks like.
Yeah, you want to try? Do you have a picture you can share?
Yeah, but I don't have permission. Andy?
Want to give her permission, Andy?
I could,
Sure.
or I could do it myself.
Oh, there it is right there. Yeah, there's the Cybertruck. And it has a large truck-sized trunk in the back. This is looking at it from the front, but it has it could take a it's big enough for one of these all-terrain vehicles in the back. This isn't showing the back, but the back opens up, and it's big enough. It's big enough for an all-terrain vehicle.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, there's the back. There's a view from the back, right? But isn't that mod looking?
The back folds down into a ramp that you can drive your ATM up into the back.
Right, exactly. Yes, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Theoretically, but that was supposed to come out last year.
Yeah, it's a little slow coming out, but so lots of choices for the people who love trucks. So that will certainly help our environment, because they're not great for gas. Oh, and the other, by the way, I think you remember the GM gas glover called the Hummer?
Yeah.
They have an electric version of that now. There's a picture of Joe Biden driving a Hummer, the electric Hummer. So they have an electric version of their Hummer coming out, which is,
Yeah.
When Arnold Schwarzenegger was governor of California, he electrified his Hummer. That was before they were building them. He turned out to be okay environmentally, particularly for a Republican. California.
That's Schwarzenegger.
We're not political here, Pamela. Well, thank you, Dr. Carr, for your
Yeah, my
great
pleasure.
talk. And appreciate your willingness to talk to us and
Mhm.
had some questions.
Yeah.
And I will turn off the recording here.
Okay.
Any other questions?
Last question. Do you get charged for charging at a charging station?
Yeah,
Yeah, yes, you do have to pay, sure.
Okay.
it costs me about $6 to use the charge point on average. Of course, it depends on how long I'm charging,
Okay.
but
The nice thing, Terry, is you don't, there's no key. You just use your iPhone, basically walk up and get in the car. But when you pull into the charging station, the car already knows who you are. You just plug it in. You don't have to pull out a credit card or punch numbers in or anything like that.
Wow, that's good.
Pretty slick.
you're talking
Oh.
about the superchargers, right?
Yes, the Tesla superchargers. All right,
But I-
thank you. Thank
Thanks.
you, everybody.
Going on that trip.
Yeah.
And
Thank you.
we'll have a talk next month.